Your friends and family that I've adopted as friends, and so you always support me. People like my sister Michelle, my brother Glenn, my rock Norman Johnson. I thank you so much for always supporting me. And then some of you don't really know me well at all, so I really appreciate you coming out to meet me and to talk about politics. You know, what's interesting to me is that while everybody is so focused, and rightly so, on this lunatic president, the real issue that we have that we can actually control is our local politics. We need to be concerned about what Miller and Bush are doing in the Maryland General Assembly. For as long as I can remember, Miller and Bush, President Miller, Mike Miller, and Michael Bush have been the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Delegates. And they have had a majority of Democrats for as long as I can remember and as long as they have held those positions. So you need to really think about that. You need to think about the fact that none of what has been wrong has come down from President Trump. You need to think about the fact that we've only had a Republican governor for a very short time. And so while I am a Democrat and I clearly love what I was brought up to believe that Democrats were to be, which is people, a group, a political party that stood for the people, what I'm here to say is that we need legislators in Annapolis that will challenge the Democrats when they are not correct, when they are not right, that will stand up to them because they have the majority. And so you've been paying attention, because everybody's paying attention now to politics much more than they were some years ago when I was first elected. You've been paying attention, so you saw that the first days of the legislative session, the Democrats did a veto override for paid sick leave and for banning the box on college applications. And so what that should show you and tell you is that the Democrats can do absolutely anything and everything they want to do.
Yeah.
So if something's not happening, it's because they don't want it to happen.
True.
And so what happens is that we have all of these well-meaning people, some of them we love and some that we like, and they want to run for office and they get elected and they're Democrats and we're happy that that's the case. But then they get to Annapolis and it's so daggone seductive from the top down. The leadership is so seductive. They make it virtually impossible for people not to follow along with whatever they dictate that they do. And how do they do that? And I'm getting to why we're here. They do it because they put their people around to finance their campaigns. And legislators believe they cannot stay in office if they do not follow the party line and become good puppets to the machine. And so I am an enigma, an aberration. I was elected in 2003 to the House of Delegates, and I fought against the machine. I just ran for a seat in the House of Delegates. I really, truly didn't believe I would win, but I ran really, really hard, and God put me in the seat. And I say that because it was historic. At that time, I was told by political operatives that it was the first time in 47 years that a non-machine candidate endorsed by nobody got elected.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, so this is sending me a message. I'm here for a reason. And I'm not really clear that I knew what that reason even was when I first got elected. I actually was working with minority businesses, and I felt that I would be a champion for small and minority businesses, black-owned businesses getting the fair share, and I was. But when I got there, I was like, oh my God, y'all, this is so much worse than I ever could have imagined from the outside. We think we can't really understand the reason that we haven't cleaned up lead poisoning out of houses. We can't really understand why today in Baltimore City there are still hundreds of children every day coming home from the hospital and going into substandard housing that are lead poisoned. We don't really understand that. But I'm here to tell you, it's not really a mystery. The reason is the Property Owners Association has a really strong lobby that finances and funds the chairs of the committees and the speakers, the legislative leadership, and the children that are lead poisoned, they don't have a lobby. So it's simple.
Okay.
The reason that we have the problem that we have in education, I'm sorry?
Preach.
The reason that we have the problems that we have in education that have resurfaced lately, Lord, these things have been going on forever. And I remember as a delegate getting to Annapolis, in 2004, there was a lawsuit that had resulted in the funding formulas that have been talked about a lot recently, the Thornton formula. And the lawsuit was a lawsuit filed by the city and the city against the state, and the lawsuit alleged that the state had been unconstitutionally underfunding our schools for decades. And the lawsuit was right. But what happened was, politics got a hold of it, a consent decree ensued, and after the consent decree happened, all of the legislators across the state said, hey y'all, Baltimore, you're not the only jurisdiction that got at-risk children. We all need a formula that's going to work for all of us. And so what happened is the formula got watered down for Baltimore, and Baltimore never got all of its funding. And so many people have been talking about the school issue. From my take on it, here's the deal. The state has not done its job, the city has not done its job, and the legislators have not held them accountable. And I can say this, I can't claim that when I go back to the Senate, I will be victorious in making this happen, but I can claim I can do what I've always done, which is fight for what's right.
Yes, ma'am. I know that's right.
But I can bring it back home to our people, and I can explain what's going on, and that's another thing. What happens is, the leadership sends out talking points to all the Democrats, and you're supposed to go back home to your district and read from the paper about what happened.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've never been able to buy into. I'm elected from the people, we're elected from the people, and we have an obligation to serve the people. And so I know a lot of people give lip service to this, but this is real. And so as a delegate, why I say it was an aberration, it wasn't just the election. It was all God, because I was able to hold my seat and get reelected several times, and I never really raised any money, ever.
Wow.
I spent money myself a lot. I went almost broke once because I believed in the cause so much, and I had a lot of problems going around to people that I know, many of whom are struggling and many of whom I fight for, and say, hey, look, I know that you suffer in cancer, and I know that your child is sick, and I know that you have all these problems, but could you please just give me $25 for my campaign? That just wasn't something that was in my spirit to do. But here we are now. The stakes are so much higher.
Yes.
I can't operate that way anymore. If I'm really going to be able to represent the people, I got to be funded by the people.
Yes.
I'm not going to get, and I don't want establishment. So, if we want our representatives to represent us, we gotta put them there. The reason that representatives don't serve us is because we don't put them in office. Financiers, the Democratic establishment machine, if the Democrats puts them there, they give them the money for the campaign. So politicians that don't have, that are not funded by the establishment, one of two things happens. They get bought off by the establishment that funds them, or they don't win. So what's we're here to do tonight is make sure, I want to say, this is not my official announcement, which is going to come next month, and hopefully we'll have the money to have all the bells and whistles attached to it. But what this is saying, I really need us to go to the Senate. We don't have any strong leadership in the Senate. We really don't have strong black leadership in the Senate. We have no black lawyer in the Senate. We have no Baltimore representative on the very important Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. We are in real trouble, not just in the 41st District, the whole city, because our representation is diminished, watered down, bought off far too often. And so what I want to do is send a strong message that we care enough, we love ourselves and love each other enough to pay for our own representation, so that we know, Will, you know that when you come to me because you put me there, I'm going to do what's best for your community, right? But if you don't put me there, who's my obligation to? And so I really need us to understand that. And don't just come out the packet yourself, because you don't want to be alone. You want to to tell, if you coming out of their pocket, you got to tell 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 of your relatives and friends to come out the pocket. Okay? Because we got to win this race.
Yeah.
This is really critical. The opposition is already at work.